Hello and welcome to the Interior Design Business. My name is Susie Rumbold. I'm a past president of the British Institute of Interior Design and I'm creative director of Tessuto Interiors. And today we're taking a very close look at a subject dear to my heart, the role of women in property and construction. When UK employment for women is broken down by sector, construction comes last in the table. Only 14.7% of those employed in the industry are women. This is 32.9 percentage points lower than the national average for working people. And at a time of industry-wide skill shortages, this represents a calamitous wasted opportunity, both for construction and for women. So, what are the factors that keep women out of the sector? What can be done to correct this position? And what benefits will women bring to construction once they do join their male colleagues as full participants? Welcome to the Interior Design Business. So today we're joined by Karen House, founder and CEO of luxury interior design practice Taylor House, and Agnita Benjamin, senior quantity surveyor at Verve Concepts, to explore the reasons behind the disparity and look at ways to encourage more women into the construction sector. Welcome to you both.
Thank you for having us.
So before we kick off, could I just get a little bit of background from you both about the companies that you run and work in and the types of projects that you do and how long you've been doing it? Karen, do you want to kick us off?
Yep, so I am CEO of Taylor House Designs and Studio House and House in Agnita. I've been working in the industry for over 30 years. In fact, we had an office here at Chelsea Harbour, more years than I care to mention. And I started mainly working for property developers. But then the private clients came along and the budgets got bigger and better. I currently run a team with Jane Landini, my creative head of studio, of 27, of which 4 are men and the rest are women. And I've seen a lot of changes over those years, both in dealing with developers, construction and the end users.
And Agnita, what about you?
Yeah, so I started quantity surveying straight out of uni. More years than I'd like to say, but my first company that I worked for was on the Olympic site, so that was a brilliant experience. It was converting the athlete studios into residential flats, and that was probably the first time I got a real experience of how the construction industry actually works. I remember being on site with 40 men and me being the only woman in an office, so it was intimidating, but I was lucky that everyone took me on board and really kind of nurtured me and my experience. I now work for Verve Concepts many years later. We're a luxury main contractor that work with high net worth clients, and we basically do turnkey approaches. We work a lot with Taylor House. Karen is amazing and her team are amazing. We do a lot of fantastic projects with them, and we are fortunate in our office. We have about 40 staff and I think about a third are women, so I mean, that's quite unheard of, really.
You're bucking the current trend.
But you know, we obviously have a valued place in the workforce, and it's really showing. So
good. So historically, why haven't careers as construction professionals appealed to women?
I think people kind of don't go against gender norms. A woman is supposed to, be a housewife, or she's supposed to love to knit, or she's supposed to love to cook and all that kind of stuff. And a man is supposed to be very manly and supposed to love to do DIY and, all that kind of stuff. So when you kind of hear the roles flip and you hear maybe a man wants to be a nurse or a nanny or a woman wants to be in construction, it's a bit like, oh. So I think it is a societal norm for women not to be in that industry, and we have to change that norm as we are doing so, to get to where we need to be.
Talking about it tonight helps. Karen, do you think, was it just a matter of appeal, or are there kind of practical reasons why women couldn't work in the construction and property sectors?
I think people presume that people who work in the construction industry, you've got to be able to carry a hod on your back and the bricks and all of that, and that's like, oh, women can't do that. But actually there's so many different roles that are required. We go on to building sites, particularly when we're installing, and there will be 1 or 2 women there, generally health and safety. They're definitely not, the people putting the plugs on and finishing the plumbing, putting the joinery together. And I really think that just needs to change. Where it changes and how it changes is a good discussion point. Does it start literally from the home? Does it start at university? Does it start, we need to change these perceptions, just as, the reverse for interior design. We're a much higher percentage women to men. Is that because, we're looked at as the girls who do the, carpets and curtains, as opposed to the incredible technical skills that we all have to have
designers
in our roles.
So you just mentioned then you think that perhaps these problems arise much earlier than the point at which people leave school and start a university course.
Yeah, I left school at 17 with very few qualifications. I'm a proud northern girl who grew up in a pub, and I had a good work ethic. But I remember going to my careers teacher and saying, well, what can I do? And she said, well, you could become an air hostess. I mean, it was like, really? And then my one skill I had, we were talking about today, was I learnt to type. So I obviously became a secretary. Well, that wasn't quite enough for me. So I, pushed the boundaries a bit. And I just happened to be lucky to fall into a career where it was easier. I mean, interior design, 100 years ago was dominated by men. It wasn't women.
True.
It's changed.
Do you think then, perhaps, Agnita, it's more, you mentioned gender norms.
Yeah.
Is this something that actually starts almost in infancy?
I think so. And I think you generally follow a role model, right? So if your role model's not in construction, then why is there a need for you to even be in construction? You might not even know about construction. And I think it's fair to say that most women that are in construction, unfortunately, have probably fallen into it by accident, not actually knowing that was the path that they were going to go into.
Right.
It just kind of felt, they fell into that path. So, that's my case, and I'm sure, my colleagues from Verve, it would be the same, really.
Yeah.
And they just grew to love it and actually realise it's actually a really beneficial thing and an amazing thing to be part of. So.
And you mentioned that you were, in your early career, you and 40 blokes on a building site. Obviously, all professional construction people spend a proportion of their lives on building sites. What issues have women traditionally faced in these environments that made them so unappealing?
Walking through a building site, back in the day, the comments that you got, frankly, would be hard to repeat right now. There was no accommodation for women at all in terms of facilities. Yeah. I don't think, by the way, there should be male-female gender loos anyway. I hate that. But, really, we just were an alien being that has suddenly arrived and been plopped in a building site. It's
Well, you couldn't even buy site boots in a size smaller than a 6. Yeah. I spent years climbing up and down scaffolding with my feet sloshing around in boots that were one size too big for me. Crazy.
Yeah, like we're an afterthought.
Absolutely, completely. Anything else you think that perhaps was putting people off that exposure to the building site world, apart from the kind of the men? Not to put too fine a point on it.
I think it feeds into what Karen was saying earlier on. You just have this perception of, you're lugging things up the stairs, it's dusty and dirty and really labour intensive. And it is sometimes, but that's not what the job is. So
has this improved in recent years? What do you think?
Are sites better places than they used to be?
Yeah, definitely. I think from, a recent site that we were on, you see a lot more women on site. There's a lot more respect, actually, from the guys on site. I think we're not so alien to them. It is the whole understanding of really don't limit yourself. Everybody can do everything. Just because you have a certain gender, it doesn't put you in a box, and don't ever be constrained by that. And I think if people see that you are able to do the same job they can, they respect you for what your skills and talents are, and it shouldn't matter whether you step into a male loo or a female loo, frankly.
It's often said that women have to work twice as hard for twice as long to gain half the recognition. Agnita, how hard have you had to work to get to where you are?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you definitely have to work twice as hard. I think one of the big hurdles I faced when I first started surveying was getting questioned a lot, and making sure that kind of men questioning whether you knew what you were talking about. And surveying sometimes can be really technical. You need to know, like, I don't know, boring stuff like floor build-ups and wall build-ups, and they'd question if you knew stuff. And sometimes you kind of second guess yourself and think, are you actually doing enough? And it's only now, probably after being in the industry for so many years, you're more confident and you're more assertive and you're more sure in yourself to know, actually, no, I'm saying the correct thing. Please don't.
But that must have been positively insulting.
Subtly, very subtly insulting, I think. And at the beginning, you feel like you don't have the authority to say anything, but then obviously the more you grow and the more you kind of develop in the industry, the more you can put your foot down and tell them how it is.
And I think when I used to go to, we worked for a very big property developing company, who shall remain nameless, and I used to be the only woman allowed into a meeting room on a Thursday to present our designs that week. It would be full of men, and they would sit me opposite the owner of the business because they said, oh, well, when he blows a gasket, we'll stick the blonde in front of him. And it was like, really, guys? Are you sure? And this did happen. And I could see when he was about to go, and it would generally be because one of the guys was late and it would push a button. And they just weren't prepared to, they just thought, well, we'll put Karen in front of her. Often we'd be appointed because, you just get the pretty girls to come along and do that. I mean, it's unbelievably patronising.
No, it's awful. Yeah. If we unpick the figures and look at construction industry professionals, current UK stats for women are really quite illuminating. So we've got 16.5% of engineers in the UK at the moment are female, 20% are project managers, only 10% for quantity surveyors, 35% of STEM students are now women, but this figure just drops back down to 16% for engineering. And this figure hasn't improved in the last 10 years. So clearly, even though women are taking on more STEM subjects at university level and beyond, there's a block somewhere.
Well, I think there's a retention issue. And I think employers need to change their stance on women in the workplace, having a family, being able to come back to work. And until those employers make that easy and possible, you're going to have some people qualifying, but then how do you retain them? I mean, we have a huge retention figure at Taylor House because we understand what is required for, a woman to work in the workplace and juggle family and home and work, and an understanding of that. And I think some of the practices where they're run predominantly by men don't understand that and don't make any accommodations.
They don't accommodate.
No.
Do you think building is fundamentally boring? Is that why women don't like it?
I don't think it's boring.
No.
I don't either.
I think taking something, whether it's a refurbishment or whether it's a new build, and seeing it come out of the ground is incredibly satisfying.
And there's nothing more joyful than a really good not messy, but a really good building site.
Yeah.
A good construction site is a thing of joy and wonder,
It is. But again, I always remember the guys that go, I don't think I'd put that wallpaper up. Ooh, not sure about that. Oh, really? Has she really gone too far this time? And you go, excuse me, just trust me. And they do it, and at the end they go, it's not bad, is it really?
It's worse when they say it in front of the client.
Oh, yeah.
They start second guessing your choice. I wouldn't have put that colour there.
I wouldn't do that then.
Do you think school-age girls are still being disadvantaged by the education system?
Yeah, absolutely. I think beyond construction, there's so many professions that girls just haven't tapped into because they haven't been told about it. And even me as a construction professional, there are probably thousands of roles in the construction industry that I don't know about myself. And it would be interesting for that to be brought into school so that kids can actually develop with them and see a career pathway that they might never have thought about. So, I'd love to, and I have kids in secondary school, and I've gone to their schools and talked about surveying just for them to get an idea of this is a profession that you could possibly take, because I never had that. So, I think it's good to kind of pass that down to the younger generation so that they have the chance to do so.
But often I think young women going into firms of engineers and project management companies and things become the poster girls, because everyone's so desperate to prove their inclusive credentials that actually there's a lot of opportunity out there for young women that they're not taking up or seeing until the situation eventually revises.
I mean, when I finished my degree, I was really fortunate that there was a company called Women in Construction. And they proactively went to universities and got women to get into construction. And that was one of the main features of me getting onto the Olympic site. And the founder her name's Kath Moore, and she was brilliant. And she got people into roles like engineering and surveying, which was unheard of at the time. And, but she was opening doors that weren't open for women beforehand. So we've
talked a bit about the changing face of building sites. Has the office working environment for women in construction changed as well? You know, when you're actually in your office?
Yeah, definitely. I think all the points Karen touched on about flexibility of work, and if you have kids working from home, I mean, I think employers are really listening to it now, and
also credibility. Did you ever were you ever in a situation where you were working in a practice and perhaps you had male colleagues that were taken more seriously than you were?
I think not so much in the office. I think definitely on site. It's always been a site-based problem. I think in the office, you're more respected. You probably get it sometimes, but not as frequent as when you're on site.
As Karen was just saying, the outlier in all of this is interior design. So I'll just bat you with some more statistics. So in the US, where all interior designers have to be registered, 79% are women and 21% are men. We don't have comparable statistics in the UK because unfortunately all designers get dumped into one bucket. So, you know, nobody knows whether they're product designers or graphic designers or whatever else they're doing. But the BIID recently did some research and revealed that 83% of interior design students are women. I'm sure that doesn't come as a surprise to anyone in this room. So the UK split is probably very similar to the US. So of all the built environment careers, what is it about interior design that makes it so appealing to women? Karen.
We were always brought in at the end, as I say, to put some cushions and curtains in place. We were not brought in alongside architects, and you as I've championed over the years that actually we are a profession that work alongside architects. And I think we weren't taken seriously as having technical voice and skills. Now, sometimes actually clients appoint the interior designer before the architect and actually start from the interior design perspective of building the team and getting the right team on board right from the outset. So I would have thought, in view of that we should be attracting more men to our industry. Again, it probably goes back to the schools. I mean, who hears somebody, a man, go into a school and talk about his day as an interior designer? I suspect that never happens.
No, I guess you're right. I'm sure it's true. Because actually, if a male interior designer did go into a school and those pupils then realised how technical and complex a profession it is, there would be more boys actually sort of going, actually, you know, that seems like quite a good idea, particularly those of them that have a more creative bent.
Yeah, and I think you know, particularly people who might be put off doing architecture because they're like 7 years and I can't.
And I have to study physics.
And I have to study physics, and I'm not very strong in maths. And you know, I think you'd attract a much wider and varied. The industry would be better for it if, as you say, at school they really understood what that set of skills is, and that, you know, you don't have to shy away from being really good at art because you happen to be a guy. It works both ways.
Yeah, no, it does. And I think interior design is a uniquely left brain, right brain profession, that you have to actually be very technical, but you also have to be creative as well.
It's like a happy medium, isn't it? You don't have to be so technical, but
it's a sweet spot.
Yeah.
So we've talked about some of the problems that various professional women suffer in the construction industry. Do you think interior designers have their own unique set of problems, or are they just the same problems as everybody else?
I think there's some of the same problems. I mean, only recently, Jane reminded me of this. I had a big birthday. I won't tell you what. Actually, it's a bit like watching On the Sofa with Graham Norton when you go, how old is Julia Roberts? And you put it in your phone. And still, they'll go, you know, really? I mean, she's done okay, hasn't she? I'm like, really considering what? Because I'm a woman? You know, the fact that I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a businesswoman, I started from scratch with nothing, the fact that we work on hugely technical skills, the fact that we are very open about everything, there still is some surprise and resistance to that, which, you know, I'm the mother of two very feisty young women, I'm pleased to say, who, you know, it's changing, but is it too slow? Yes. I mean, I've seen big change in my career, but to begin with, the things that, you know, I was asked to do and sent off to do, you wouldn't have dreamt of asking a man to do.
No. As part of a professional design team, Karen, something you touched on earlier, there is often only one woman at the table. For both of you, I'd love to hear your experiences on this. This is the opportunity to dish the dirt. Has this always been a positive experience?
I think women in construction appreciate that we're few and far between. And I do know in other industries you probably feel a bit of kind of competition. but I do feel like we kind of come together and, you know, help each other in the
but
time.
If you're the only woman at the table.
If we're the only women at the table.
If you're the only woman at the table, has that always been a positive experience? Tell me about some of the things that have happened to you in those big design team meetings.
So yeah, not always a positive experience. Touching on what I said before, you do feel like sometimes you're getting second guessed. I guess exactly what Karen said too, where they question your decisions, they question your process, and sometimes you do get kind of led down the track, and you think, oh my god, like
you start to question yourself.
You question yourself, and it takes a strong person to be like, actually no, what I'm saying is right, and I'm saying it for a reason. Listen to me, basically. So yeah, you have to be assertive. I think, you know, it's that age-old saying, if you know, fake it till you make it kind of thing. And you do have to be assertive, keep your chest up high, and just kind of get your point across. And then eventually, you know, people do start to listen.
That's the tricky balance. If you're too assertive, then oh my god, it's that pushy
You're
woman.
a bully broad.
Yeah, you know, really? Can you do that? Whereas the guy sits in the room never has to think about that.
No.
Just doesn't. And women are constantly looking for that fine balance that frankly sometimes is exhausting.
My personal favourite is when I come up with a good idea, everyone ignores it, and then 3 doors down, the guy sitting 3 places along from me says exactly what I've just said.
Yeah.
And my response is usually, I'm sorry, is there an echo in here? How can we convince teenage girls that the built environment would be a good, cool place to build a career?
Well, I think we've got amazing role models, and I look at some of my team, a lot of whom are here, who are also the same. I think it is making sure that we do get out to the schools and the universities and get people young. And as well, you know, that families discuss that. You know, my girls, used to come with me when I was working. They've actually chosen completely different careers. I remember meeting some women who were working at high level in construction and property development companies. And the reason we're there was because they had a father who would take them to work, who would introduce it to them. Did they have to be the absolute ball breakers to survive and do it? Back in the day, yes, they were. I mean, they could be some of the toughest people you would meet. Did they want to do that? No, if you ask them, no, I don't think they would have been. But it really has to start from a really early age to really embed in that, you know, the whole thing that we don't have to be stereotyped into little boxes. It's really important.
Difficult cycle to break, though.
Yeah.
Seriously hard.
Got to change the norm, definitely.
No, it's too true. We've talked a lot about professional women on sites. If we actually look at the girls on the tools, women who work as contractors or subcontractors, the figures are terrible. 3% of electricians in the UK, 1% of plumbers, 1% of joiners in the UK are women. And these figures, again, have shown little change for a decade. What do you think is stopping girls from considering these very lucrative and in-demand careers? I mean, I suppose we've kind of covered it, but is there anything else that you can think of?
It's just not knowing. I mean, in my whole career, I think I've only ever met one female site manager. And even then I was like astounded. I was, you know, how did you get into it? Like, do you enjoy it? And she, again, fell into it. So, yeah, and you're rightly like what you said, that they are lucrative. They're, you know, highly in demand. We're always looking for those trades. And I think it's a shame that, you know, women don't see it as a substantial career, because it could be brilliant.
Yeah,
absolutely. And sometimes if you lend your hand to a skill that you never knew, you excel in it. So, you know.
And you know, perhaps if it was, you know, there were incentives from construction companies and developers that they have to meet a certain quota, then again that would change things.
That would help.
You know, the really big companies, you know, have to put money back into apprenticeship schemes that again have an equal blend and mix.
Yes, because I don't know, I wasn't able to find any information about the balance across the sexes in intake into apprenticeship schemes, but that would be some really interesting information, I'm sure, if we could get hold of it. Unfortunately, though, boys are also not considering these career options. Why do you think boys are not going onto the tools?
I think it's all the other professions that they see, you know, online. You see all these influencers sitting in a nice chair and talking like us and making massive amounts of money. But you know, why would you slave away on the site and getting dirty all day when you could make triple the amount doing tech or finance or, like I said, influencing on you know.
Although not everyone's going to be able to do that.
No, but I think that's just the route that people take now. maybe it's the easy way out, but it's the way that, you know, it's sold to them in a nice package, and that's the route that they'll take. And I also think schools encourage that too, right? There's never a talk about construction. It's always about, you know, do your maths, your science, your English, so you could go into university and progress with your career. It's never about, you know, doing, you know, things like a vocational courses, so you could do an apprenticeship so you could get into construction, and that's a whole other route. And I know they're doing things like T-levels now, which do help vocational qualifications and stuff, vocational careers. But again, how many girls are being pushed into that direction? Probably not many.
All boys,
all boys,
all
exactly.
boys. So is it because the path into a degree is overstressed, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like one shoe fits all when it's not the case. I think not every child needs to go down that traditional route. You know, some need to see an alternative.
Interestingly too, these are likely to be the jobs that are immune to AI. Lots of students now, as they're approaching their degrees, are kind of going, is my job still going to be there by the time I qualify? So you would think that parents would be pushing kids into those really good, practical, money-earning, solid skills, but they don't seem to be.
Yeah. But then do they know as well? It's
Maybe
a cycle, right?
Yeah, they're not aware of the
They don't know, they
opportunities
can't.
either.
Yeah.
Let's leave where we are now and move on, hopefully, into the future. 31% of registered UK architects are women, although the number of women starting architectural degrees, starting their Part 1s, is now 51.7%. So the balance, I think, probably will begin to correct over time, at least in architecture, but will it? Karen, do you think...
Well, I think it can. You know, I think, as we touched on, if architectural practice understand the demands of, as an architect, you qualify, you know, you want to have a family, you want to, but still have a career, what does that look like? And, you know, the good thing is COVID taught us all a lot. You know, we still, as a studio, you know, at a certain level, you can still work from home on certain days. You can have flexibility. You know, I always say to my team, you know, you don't ever miss a sports day or a parents' evening or any of that for work. And I think that understanding and that flexibility, and the great thing is also we're seeing lots of men wanting to be house husbands. I mean, it doesn't just sit with women anymore to do that. So the more that changes, then I don't see why you can't keep those percentages up. Because, you know, what is sad is if you go through that whole skill and training and have that, and then you have to put it to one side for so long that then it's not relevant, you've got to retrain. I think that's a very sad waste of resources, really.
But then if employers are not encouraging the men that they employ to take those parental responsibilities equally as seriously as the girls, you know, the boys are always going to be there 45 hours a week and the women will still be doing 35, and who gets promoted first? It's a really tricky circle to square, that one. Do you think that we'll see, given that does seem to be a positive shift in architecture, do you think that we'll begin to see the same sort of positive shift in other construction professions? I mean, 10% of your profession are women.
About that.
I was really quite shocked too.
You know, thinking about that, and I do know quite a few female QSs.
Maybe you know all of them.
Maybe, yeah. But yeah, I was actually completely shocked that it was only 10%. I would have thought maybe about 30%. So yeah, it's sad to think that it's not as you know, there's not that many women in the industry. But I do always get the same comment is when people do see QSs on site. I mean, for instance, myself and our commercial administrator retail, we went onto a site the other day, and the first thing the client QS said, and he was a man, he was like, Verve just have loads of women in the office. Like, I've never seen such a team that has so many women. And he was saying it out of surprise, but at the same time, it was lovely that was the comment that he was making. It just showed that we're capable of our job, we're doing a good job, and, you know, we're here to stay.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Do you think that modern methods of construction will have an impact on building sites and women's ability to work on building sites?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
How?
Well, I mean, for example, we are designing another floor on a building at the moment, a penthouse floor, that is all being made in pop format.
Yep.
So it's going to be craned on.
Off-site in a factory.
Off-site in
a nice,
factory.
clean, warm environment. Yeah.
Yeah, and that, as you see more of that come on in modern house building techniques, that's definitely going to have an impact. There's no reason why that shouldn't be more of that. I think as well, it's all about communication, isn't it? but it's slow and it's frustratingly slow. But if you've got more women, you've got a site foreman who is a woman who is going to bring in more women to work on that site, that everybody sees that it's a more balanced way of working, that encourages more people. That then starts to create a shift, but a shift takes time to happen. Yeah. But obviously we're seeing it, Verve, not 50-50 yet, but will be soon. Yeah. And making sure that we see the women go right to the top.
Yes.
Not just stop at a certain level.
No, so there is still a glass ceiling.
Yeah, because that is then when big change happens.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yes, I suppose it's you're up there and you can give someone a hand up. Is the way it will work.
Yeah.
Come up. The view's great from up here. The view is great from up here, actually. Do you have, either of you, have any tips for women participating in design team meetings?
Be confident.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a wrong answer. You do only learn by your mistakes anyway. You don't learn by your successes as much. Yeah. And it's the same with public speaking and sitting on panels. It's kind of some of it's practice, and the more you do, the more confident you get about it. Just own that space and really, if anybody puts you down in front of that is not kindness. That is not what it's about. That certainly doesn't happen in our studio. And as directors, we like to encourage the younger members of our team to start to do the presentations with us very much taking a back seat so that they get that experience, as they grow in confidence. And the clients, they love hearing from the whole team. They don't just want a monologue from the person sitting at the head of the table.
Any other tips for women in design team meetings?
Yeah, I'd completely echo what Karen's saying. You just have to be assertive, believe in yourself 100%. Like I said before, it's so easy to kind of get jaded by other people's comments, and you just have to kind of push that back and just continue to say what you want to say and be assertive.
And what about advice for women on building sites? Any particular tips for going onto sites?
Advice, gosh. It's not as scary as you think it is. They're actually really good environments. Like, a lot of the men on site are so, it's like a community. Everyone's so fun. It's very bantery. Like, it becomes a family when you have a project because you're there from the very beginning. It becomes your baby and you see it grow into the final product. The client comes and sees their house or whatever it is, and you're happy together as a team. So yeah, it's not as scary as you think it is. Everyone should give it a chance, and I just wish schools and universities just push it more so that women do come into it, and boys as well.
And I think when I'm on a building site, we're all human beings. So I always eye-to-eye contact. If I'm passing somebody on the stairs, I'll say thank you, because I think sometimes there's that, oh God, the designers are coming, kind of attitude. And it's when if you're kind, and if you treat people how you want to be treated yourself, then you get courteous responses back. And even if they aren't always giving you eye contact, I will always say something appreciative, or how's it going today and what's going on. And again, once you get that communication going, you realise that you're all the same, then that breaks down a lot of the barriers. I mean, the days of builders whooping and comments and wolf whistles, I have to say, thank goodness, are
long gone.
Yeah.
Yes, thank goodness. What do you think would be the main benefits of increased female participation in the UK construction industry?
I mean, women just have a completely different take to men.
Yeah, so explore that a little. So what would we bring? What do we bring to the table?
I think, a different approach. I think, sometimes women could, the way we navigate stuff is so different, and the end result might be, we'll get to a result much better in a much more timely manner than a man. I wouldn't say our organisational skills are different, but, they are different.
They are. We're used to multitasking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we are used to multitasking.
And we bring less ego into the mix. We're there to get a job done. We're not there to kind of have any nonsense one-upmanship with the other bloke.
We're not threatened by the other people on the team.
Yeah.
So we like to work as a team, rather than thinking, oh, what's so-and-so going to think, and so-and-so's going to think, and oh, my boss is here, am I going to get promoted? I mean, it's just not the way we think about things. As you say, it's what is best for the project rather than what is best for me.
Yeah, fantastic. So, Karen, who was the most brilliant, impressive, inspirational woman you ever encountered in the industry, not including yourself?
Well, I was going to say, or I can't mention my team. No, actually, I always remember, and I do relate this often, is I once heard the Divine Mary Fox Linton speak a long time ago. And, you know, she was ahead of her game.
So ahead.
And she was giving a talk and she said, you know, at the end of the day, just remember who is paying the bill. and that always stuck with me, you know, when I was thinking about designing with clients money and how we were going to do things and how we were going to engineer things. And that still very much sits with me. But also it's just, always being approachable. You know, we are, as this goes back to, we're all human beings just trying to do the best we can. And if you look out for the person you're working next to, then you end up benefiting from it.
And Agnita, did you have someone that was very inspiring to you?
Yeah, it's actually, you know, an old friend. She went to school with my sister, and she actually started off in surveying before me. And I had gone to university before, and I did a politics degree first, actually. And I came out, and I just couldn't find a job. And she said, "Why don't you do surveying?" And I was like, "What's that?" And she said, you know, she showed me little bits and pieces. And yeah, she's just done amazingly. She's a commercial director in Saudi Arabia now, working on the line. So yeah, if I could follow her path, I would. She's just like, she's so decorated. Her CV's amazing. She's worked for some amazing companies, and it just kind of gives you hope that, you know, she can do it. Someone that I know can do it, then why not me? And then I can be, you know, the same inspiration for the person behind me. Her name's Georgina Boyd. She'll kill me for mentioning her.
She should feel
I was trying not to. Yeah,
no,
she's amazing. Yeah.
And then, what is the funniest, most outrageous thing that has ever happened to you on a building site?
On construction sites, you get a lot of pranks, I think. One of the funny ones I can remember was I came to site and I was trying to type and my keypad just wasn't working, and I just thought, okay, I'll sort it out later. And then I took my notepad and it wouldn't move, and I was like, what's going on? And basically they had put wood glue over everything on my desk, so nothing moved. And I was like, prank of the day. So that was funny. It was stressful, but it was funny at the time. But yeah, and of course I felt part of the team. I felt like it was nice that they didn't kind of not do it to me because I was the only woman. They were just like, you're one of us kind of thing. So yeah, it was funny.
And Karen?
Well, I was trying to think about that. It goes back to toilets, sorry, bring it back to a base level. But it really bugs me, even at the theatre or anywhere, that there'll always be a queue for the women's and not for the men's. So if there is, I'm afraid I go into the men's. So there have been occasions where I forget there are urinals in there and they might be being used. So
like, don't mind me.
Yeah, so I do forget that bit and I must remind myself.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much to Karen and Agnita, two of the most brilliant, impressive and inspirational women I have ever talked to. It's been an amazing and fascinating conversation, and we have a big round of applause from our audience, please. And thanks also to the Design Club for hosting us here today at the Design Centre in Chelsea. And a final thank you to you, our amazing audience. We do hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please do get in touch on our social channels at Interior Design Business Pod to share any feedback. The Interior Design Business is a Wildwood Plus production.